Okay, thank you to future Eric and Todd. I am the past Eric. Todd's not here because he's a slacker. We can't stand him right now. But I'm actually here with two way better people than Todd, and let me introduce them. These are some of the awesome people behind the game, The Last Worker. We have Jorg from Oiffy, the producers of The Last Worker. How are you doing, man?
I'm okay. How are you?
Oh man, I love that you love your microphone because I am in love with my microphone.
Yeah, yeah. I will always speak in this radio voice with you.
Oh, it's perfect. It's perfect.
I'm
I was gone for my home studio for like 35 days this in March, and I got back and I'm like, man, I missed this audio.
yeah, and since I have a permanent face for radio, this mic is all I have.
I'm with you on that one too. We have a lot going on, brother. Me and you. Also with me is Ryan Bousfield, the creative director from Wolf and Wood, the studio behind the game, The Last Worker. How are you doing, man?
Yeah, I'm good. Yeah, I'm going for more nasal tones rather than any sort of deep ASMR.
Well,
You sound beautiful.
he's up north, where they all have sinus infections permanently because of the weather.
Yeah, yeah. I'm in the only room that doesn't get the sunlight today, so beautiful.
So it's like a normal day.
Yeah,
Sunlight.
exactly.
Ryan, tell us, where are you from, man?
So we're up in Newcastle, northeast of England. So yeah,
Nice.
yeah, where the sun never shines, except for today. So we're quite lucky.
Nice. Jorg, where are you coming from?
I'm sitting in London, UK at the moment,
Oh,
where
wow.
it's also sunny, and it also is a rare occurrence. But I'm originally from Belgium, but I'm half German and half Polish, which probably makes me Swedish.
Wow. That is an odd combination, but I love it. I love it. That's fantastic. Yeah, I am. Like I said, was talking to you guys earlier. I'm in upstate New York, where it can be 88 degrees Fahrenheit one day and then 30 degrees the next day in the springtime. It's like a schizophrenic Mother Nature. It's absolutely insane.
But that's exactly what Roland Emmerich predicted. Remember, when the ice was chasing people
Mm.
through New York, and then the wolves came out and stuff. He saw it all coming. I think he's the prophet, actually.
He could be very well. Well, guys, we are here today to talk about The Last Worker. This has been a game that I've been enamored with now for a while. This was a game that was highly anticipated. I remember talking about this game a long time ago, probably over a year ago, and really looking forward to the game. And then it finally came out, and it's probably one of the best narrative story games that I've ever played. And um, yeah, it really is, and this is not my my community will attest that this is not normally my type of game. I'm a very much a Dark Souls, action packed, very roguelike or roguelite driven fan. But when I get a good story, it wraps me in, and the game becomes more compelling to me. And that's what I think The Last Worker has done. Pretty much, as good as I've ever seen another game do. But before we get into the meat and the potatoes of the game, let's do this. Jorg, first tell us, exactly about Oiffy, what you do there, and the involvement in The Last Worker.
Well, Eric, thanks for that intro. Do you mind if we use that entire quote on the back of the packaging?
Wow, that was a long one, but yeah, absolutely. You'd need
Yeah.
bigger packaging.
No, but it says it all. So it's yeah. I'll get in touch with the PR team. It's consider it done.
Absolutely.
The poster will be just that.
Yep,
Right.
Gary, get on that right now.
But yeah, Oiffy, it's a company my wife and I founded like a decade ago, and we've done plays and graphic novels, and a West End show in London, and a feature film called The White King with Jonathan Pryce, a bunch of people in it, which we shot back in 2015. It came out in 2017. Then we just made a film with John Malkovich, which is coming out next year, called A Winter's Journey. It's a painted animation. with live action performances at its heart, and based on Schubert's music. And we use Dreams on PlayStation to build and design the sets, and it's going to be something else. It's coming out next year. So we've been telling stories across a variety of different mediums and stuff for a while. But I mean, I've always been a gamer at heart, and that's always been my happy place. And so I've been dreaming about making a new kind of narrative game for a very long time. And this particular game I've been dreaming about making since about 2014. So, and it would take me 5 years to finally meet the right people to do it with, i.e., this guy.
Yeah, hell yeah, and that's a great segue into Ryan. And Ryan, I love Wolf and Wood. The games that you guys make are absolutely incredible. You guys have been killing it for a long time, and in virtual reality. Tell us a little bit about your involvement with Wolf and Wood.
Yeah, so I started Wolf and Wood as a solo developer back in 2014. So had a little side project.
Yeah.
I was working full time at that point, and the little side project were a chair in a room, which we released on the Oculus DK1 back in the day.
Wow.
So yeah,
So you're
all
extremely OG.
480 pixels. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
And he technically invented virtual reality, but he's quite modest.
Way to go, Ryan. Just tell everybody that you're the godfather of virtual reality. It's okay.
yeah. As long as nobody sets death drones on us or anything. So okay.
It's coming.
Yeah. So that just kind of blew up. People were streaming it. It had millions of views, and it just seemed like something that could be a changing career and a career that I wanted to pursue. So I went for it, and made a chair in a room, and then that led on to building a team and the Exorcist Legion VR, and
another great one.
Yeah, from there we've grown and took on kind of more unusual projects, starting from that horror route and then going into hotel R&R, which were just completely off the wall, and then meeting Jorg and being introduced to the world of the Last Worker, which just seemed kind of a left field, oddball, weird and wonderful, kind of.
that should be the quote: oddball, weird, wonderful.
That's about the world of the Last Worker.
It really is. It really is.
Don't take it as an insult.
Guys, look, seriously, I just made a TikTok of one of the. I was like, this is going to make a perfect TikTok, and it's of that opening scene where they're talking about grabbing the big stick, and I'm like, this is my game. And give it a jerk, give it a jerk, and I'm like, this is my game. the humor in this game is awesome, and yeah, we'll get into that in a minute. Let me just talk about Wolf and Wood a little bit more. You skimmed over like a couple of really big things. A Chair in the Room, classic game, freaking amazing, great game. A Chair in the Room, Greenwater, also, right?
Yeah, that was the one that I spent a year toiling away at in time for the Vive launch in 2016. So I had a deadline, and I would pretty much, and just the money I saved, which were for a deposit for a house, which I kind of gambled that one.
Nice.
But
paid off.
It was fun.
Paid off for you. You're good.
yeah. And Greenwater would just, it was kind of, because it was a solo project. I spent a lot of time essentially in a basement, bringing these, especially the little boy, bringing him to life, and making those, building on those scares. And there were a few times when I was working late at night and, like motion sensor lights just switch off once everybody's left. So I kind of just sat in this little lit corner and then the rest of the room were completely dark. And then I was testing that. Well, I don't want to say which bit, but there's kind of quite a midway point where it gets particularly scary. And it just freaks me out. I'm like, right, I'm gonna have to go home and do this in the day.
I love it. And then that led you into the Exorcist Legion VR. Is that how it kind of went, or?
Yeah. So we got contacted by a third party that they'd got hold of the rights to that, to the Exorcist 3, William Peter Blatty's narrative for it. Obviously, he had nothing to do with the second one, and the Exorcist 3 would kind of him taking back control of the franchise, where it kind of, it'd been in the second one just a run for money, really, and then the third one he actually wanted to bring it back to, bring the story back to where he started with the Exorcist 1. So yeah, we had kind of a open framework on that. We knew the story, we knew what he was trying to get across, and then we had the world and the characters to build on. So we built a story around that, around a copycat of the Gemini Killer, and Wolf and Wood wrote the story, produced the music. We literally did the whole thing on that one. And really, really happy with how that turned out. Just the kind of the different scenes. I've not really thought about it in a while, because it's like we've been it's one thing onto the next thing. But yeah, we're kind of the kind of journey that we take people through on that one, with the starting off at the church and the kind of squealing murdered priest, and then through to the asylum. And I think that the third chapter especially really, that's one that definitely stands out to people, where you in the attic, the Abaizu over at the bathroom door, and just the kind of the whisper in your ear, and the positional audio in that just
freaks you out. Yeah,
really
you've done it well when you're in VR and you have like the hairs standing up in the back of your neck, and when you hear those whispers, you've nailed it at that point, right?
Yeah, it's so weird as well, because the person who did the whispers in chapter 1, Jen Henry, she's just really, really nice, really kind of approachable, nice woman.
But with the whispers, it turns her into like a crazy woman.
yeah, it really works. It's so surprising.
I think that's the beautiful thing about people who are truly great horror makers, and that's what Ryan is definitely in the VR space at the very least already, is that I think it actually requires, you actually have to be lovely, and you actually have to understand what makes people feel good in order to take them to the opposite of it. It's sort of, to me, it's an exercise in empathy. Making a really good horror story, you have to understand what people's fears are, and therefore you actually have to care about people and their feelings. And I think it's the same in film. I think the greatest horror filmmakers also have made some of the greatest comedies. It's because you understand how to surprise people, you know how to push those extreme buttons, and both of those extremes require that understanding of human nature. And so it made sense, for me, like instantly, like looking at Ryan's works, like, this guy gets it. He understands how to make people feel something,
Yeah, and that's like a little kind of like, let's transition into that now, because you guys kind of like, how did you get together, and where did the Last Worker come from? Whose idea was it? How did we put it together? And like, what was the genesis of the Last Worker with the two of you guys, and Oiffy and Wolf and Wood?
Well, I mean, it started with me. I mean, it's been a long journey. It was around 2014 or so. Yeah, 2014. I walked into sort of my local little supermarket, in London, and overnight all the employees had been replaced, bar except for two, with these sort of weird self-checkout machines. And one of them was just standing in front of the sort of cigarette, sort of curtain thing, and the other person was just waiting for the computers to crash so they would restart Windows, or whatever they run on. And I realized it was kind of sick to see that these completely dehumanized sort of and demotivated faces on these two remaining employees, and the one guy had to assist the robot, which felt wrong to me. Like, shouldn't it be the other way around? And And then gradually, at the same time, Amazon fulfillment centers had become so omnipresent everywhere, and there were stories coming out, including a documentary on the BBC called "The Truth Behind the Click," which looked into, you know, someone had snuck in a sort of hidden camera into one of those fulfillment centers in the UK. And I looked at how people were getting around in these places with these like beepers that were counting down the seconds in between each product, and there was a quota that you have to hit, and if you don't, then it beeps louder and alerts everyone around you to the fact that you're messing up and blah 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 blah. And I thought that whole thing was so insane. And it was it was a video game. It was a dystopian gamified environment in which everyone is being reduced to non-thinking sort of people that are rushing after what the algorithm tells them to do, which is so weird. And so that was the beginnings of it. So I wanted to make a game about that, and I felt that the best way to do that would be with VR, because it is the most, and to elaborate on the thing from earlier, I think is the most empathic of storytelling mediums. It's just that we haven't explored that a whole lot yet. But the fact that you can physically embody a character makes you really live their experience. It's all about lived experience, and I felt that'd be much better than watching a documentary about this, because, you know, people don't really watch anything anymore with real attention, because we can second screen everything. And so the idea of making this a VR game was important to me. And of course, that presented me with a problem, because people were like, what do you mean VR? It's not really a thing. It's like, there's only got 20,000 units out there. It's like, I don't care. I really just, I've been working in the theater. Like, you know, I've been lucky to have like 500 people and to see one show. I'm used to small numbers, you know,
right.
But I know that I've changed those 500 people, you know, so maybe to me, VR is an extension of that idea. So it took another 4 years after that. I was at Gamescom, big game conference in Germany, with 265,000 sort of attendees. It might have been even more, because it was pre-COVID then. And I found a developer for it after going through a couple of different people, and it didn't quite work out. And the developer was going to be CodeSync, the lovely people behind, you know, Jurassic World Aftermath and things like that.
Yep.
And but I think it was at that show actually that they signed their contract for Jurassic World Aftermath, and thus we're no longer able to work in the game, which they announced to me after we had all these amazing meetings with like all these publishers. I was like, oh, cool, yeah, I want to do this weird last worker thing. And I was so disappointed. I was so sad, you know. And then a couple of, you know, weeks later, I'll let Ryan to continue. Ryan,
yeah. No, I bumped into Eddie from CodeSync on the train. He was doing his Sudoku, as he does. And I just said hello, just chatting for a bit, and yeah, I kind of heard from him. I don't think he said on the train. I think he said like he followed up and said, "Oh, look, there is this thing, and we've been chatting to this guy." And so yeah, it just kind of came around as this, you know, friend of a friend, essentially. Do you want to chat to this person? So it's like, well, yeah, might as well. We'll see, you know, see what the project is, see what's going on, and yeah, we're all kind of quite just, you know, light. Let's see what everything's about, and then yeah, obviously we introduced to the last worker, and you'd already got Mick on board, Mick McMahon, who, you know, incredible.
He's like the comic artist, right?
Yeah, he's one of the creators of Judge Dredd, and
yes,
you know,
right,
and a man in his 70s. He was 40 when he started working on The Last Worker.
That'll do it to you.
It's a brutal industry, man.
Yeah.
Spits you out. But no, he's so he was on board. Olafur Dari Olafsson was already attached to play Kurt. I'd recorded a couple of lines with him for a little prototype that I'd made with a couple of lovely developers. And then who else? Oliver Krause had already written a bit of music for it.
Wow.
So there was who else was in there? I think, is that it? I think no. And also David Hewlett. He had already done a bit of a voice for. No, he hadn't yet. Had he? I think he did.
I think there were. Yeah, there were.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
this was it was pretty far along then, really, when
I mean, I
you
practically finished the game by myself.
you're like, do I really need you guys?
No,
But
no, it was.
seriously, I mean, you had the story, you had some of the part, you had a lot of the elements. You
Well, I
needed
mean,
that partner, right? You needed that
yeah, I
partner
mean,
to do
yeah, the concept was there. The concept was there, but like there's so much that wasn't, which is
right.
basically the whole game. But
Well, and I was gonna
um,
say too, look how these things work out. Like literally, I mean, and not saying anything against CodeSync, they're an amazing studio, but it could have been a completely different game with a different, you know what I mean? When you have two different development studios, things can take a different turn. So, I mean, it worked out that this amazing game is here because of Jurassic World Aftermath was signed, and thank God that Wolf and that train meeting happened, right? It's funny how these things happen.
it's actually it's all thanks to Steven Spielberg, actually.
All right, we're gonna like thank him directly at the end of the credits of the
Yeah,
interview.
yeah.
But yeah,
Well,
I think
thank you
that's
very much
super
for having
cool. I
us.
mean, the way, the way everybody kind of like these things happen, it really shocks me sometimes. And Ryan, the way you were saying, you were talking with with a person from CodeSync, and things. It is cool in the VR industry still. It's still small enough where people can still do those things, right? You can have those chance meetings and say, hey, maybe this didn't work out for us, but this would maybe be great for you guys, and these things can still happen in a smaller industry.
Yeah, 100%. We've seen it not just with this, but the studio that's doing the follow up to The Exorcist is, we know them as well.
Right.
It is, you do have to be. Obviously, you. I'm going to say you do have to be, but it is. You've got to be right with people, and you've got to. I did a talk for some young students, and one of the frames, the last frame actually were just Bill and Ted, which were a completely lost reference to them, but
Hey, of course.
it would just be excellent to each other because not just VR but games in general. You do bump into the same people. Paths cross in different ways at different times. So I do think, and from what I found of working in the industry, from doing that first prototype chair, it that only kind of came to life because there were people at Bossa who helped me out, who they did the surgeon simulator at the time, and they helped me out and they let me use equipment and they introduced me to Chet Falzik, and so the whole thing, there is this kind of interwoven spaghetti kind of industry that is built off the back of people
And
looking
it's
after each other.
completely circular. It's like what's beautiful about games, and I think the fact of us working with someone like Mick McMahon, who, he's a man in his 70s. He's a gamer.
Right.
He's young at heart, and he plays Switch and PC games every day, and
Love it.
and he's brought something to our game that is a fresh style that no one else is doing. Like, it took a guy in his 70s who actually kind of came up with this hyper real, super stylized characters. I mean, Mike Mignola lists him as one of his top influences, right? So Hellboy wouldn't exist without Mick's influence.
Wow.
But today I was talking to Imre, Bossa Studios, one of its founders, he says hi, right? And I got him to be a speaker at a conference in Croatia next week, and we were today like giving each other like pointers on what we should talk about, because he's doing a talk, giving a keynote there, and a few years ago I had to go to him for advice on how to even start making games, and you realize that we're all constantly just searching, and we're always constantly just discovering, and every single time you make a new project, it's almost like you're starting from scratch. And therefore it's so important to be human, and to be kind, and to explore. Like, we're just exploring together, and it's exciting.
Yeah, and I think when you do a narrative experience like this, and you have all these things together, I think you need these parts to make it work, right? Because game is a very loose term, let's say, and what is a game, what's not a game, what's an experience, what's not an experience. This to me is a game, but I mean, to me the experience and the story and the narration, but you have to have the right parts to go with it, and you have all the right parts here. So you have the amazing story, you have the amazing dialogue that has been written, you have the amazing voice actors, then you have the amazing visual effects, and then you have the amazing gameplay that gets you from point A to point B to move the story along. Tell us about all these parts, putting these parts together to make it cohesive. How hard is that in any game, whether it's a VR game or flat game, but especially a VR game when you're in a VR headset trying to experience it?
It's just a Unity plugin now.
It's a GPT plugin.
Yeah, the make it good button.
Yeah, right. Perfect.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, how to make it all. I mean, I think with Last Worker especially, it has been something from the start that we've wanted to. We're going to drive in the player through, and we do have there's moments of comedy, and then there's more emotional moments, and then in between all this, we're moving around the warehouse, we're doing our day-to-day stuff, we get approached, we then we're kind of pushed into a different type of gameplay, where maybe have an animated segment where we're having a bit back and forth between characters. Yeah, I mean, it is just a case of refinement and working through those events bit by bit. And we just set some rules from the beginning about the characters coming with you wherever you go. So we, as much as possible, we try not to stop the player in the tracks. We're trying not to just talk at the player. Obviously, there are certain areas where you do have to look at what the plan is and be briefed on a segment, but you've still got control to look around. You can still take in your surroundings. There's still a lot going on in the surroundings at those times as well. It's not just hyper focused on one thing. So there's all these kind of different elements that are at play to kind of create these multiple layers where you have that environmental storytelling going on in the background while you've been told about which buttons to press to move your pod.
I mean, it's been like the thing that's most crucial about when you have all these seemingly disparate and also sometimes conflicting elements is that it's just like when you put a bunch of seemingly disparate and seemingly conflicting people in the same room, the way that you can get over all those differences is if you keep talking. And the one thing that Ryan and I have done a lot over these last few years of putting the game together is to talk, like on a daily basis. Like, we've just been like, before we even started making stuff, like actually really laying our hands on we've spent days and days and days and days communicating, right, Ryan? I mean, it's like it was tons and tons of that. It's like before I even started writing the script, it was months and months and months into the actual development, because I wanted to make sure that everything that I write actually serves the gameplay and serves the systems that that Ryan and the team had put in place, and that it would serve the design, and that things weren't that things didn't feel like there was fat on top of it, and some that that everything was really interconnected. And hopefully we've pulled it off, but it's like it's been extremely it just requires tons and tons of communicating, not just into humanly on the team, but also between all the elements. And it's really fun. It's like you want to keep open to both additions but also to cuts. How do you reduce things down to what's really needed? And hopefully you can feel that when you play the game.
Yeah, and you can, because I don't think, to me, there's no point in a game where you're like, okay, well, you're always compelled to move forward in the game, because I think of the story, and then the gameplay itself lends itself enough to, like, it gives you something to do between those elements. It gives you, it's the controls are good enough, the visuals are good enough, the sound is good enough, the interactions with the objects and using the gravity gun and things like that to move the boxes. There's enough there that moves the story along for you. Otherwise, it would just be a narrative experience that you sit through, right? So I think there's enough here to keep you involved. And that's what I mean by a happy mix of how do you do those things, especially because this is a flat game too, right? I mean, this is a flat game. You can go play it, on PC if you choose to. I think you can play it flat on PlayStation VR too, if I'm correct too, right?
Yeah. So if you've got your headset on, it'll launch into the VR version. If you switch your headset off, you can just launch in and play it with a controller and sit back. So yeah, it's the same with the PC version. Yeah, you can launch into either mode, and you can always play a bit in VR and then jump back to flat if you
It's
know.
just super immersive in VR. It just is something about being in virtual reality and being able to look around your environment and physically, move things and control things, and it just brings you into the story so much more. And we keep saying story, and to me, again, it's the voice acting in the story that helps you along too. The actor, you said his name earlier. I can't remember, that played Kurt.
Oliver Dari Olofsson.
Yes, so good. And then, Jason Isaacs, Skew is one of the best characters in sidekicks you'll find in a game, and you laugh at him. You were like, and then you have emotional feeling as your partner, and you have that attachment. So you've done super well to bring out like feeling for this character, and it's such a great character, and he does such a good job. All the voice acting is top notch. How did you guys get these people to do this? Because this doesn't happen a lot in VR games.
No, I mean, Dari I'd worked with in the past on The White King, on my first feature that I co-directed with my wife Alex. Claire Hope Ashity, who plays Hoverbird, she was also in The White King.
Excellent, also so good.
David Hewlett was introduced to me by my now late friend Stuart Gilray, who was fundamental in helping with the early prototypes on the game. So he introduced us. Who else? Tommy Earl Jenkins, who you might know from Death Stranding. I'd done a short film with him years ago, so I knew him from that. Jason, I was developing and have been developing a feature film with. And this is an interesting example in a way. It's back to the question from the previous question, was that like Skew didn't exist originally because I really wanted to explore the idea of loneliness and really being the last one in there, and that alienation, and it was actually Ryan who said, like, I think it's going to be too much to just expect the player to be alone in this. We need someone to also guide us a little bit, to sort of direct our eyes and make us aware of certain story points. And I was sort of I loathed the idea of having another sort of annoying sidekick, which is why we do have an extremely annoying sidekick at the beginning of the game, who and then I don't want to spoil anything, but play with that idea. But that's how he came about. So again, it's through communication, so understanding what was needed in order to, better tell the story, but also to help the gameplay. And that's what Skew is, very important for as well. And not only that, but he has his own moment to shine as well, as, perhaps later in the game. So he's more than just a sidekick.
Yeah, I mean, it's awesome to hear these things, like how he wasn't even in the original game, because to me it's like one of the best some of the best interactions of the game are between Kurt and Skew, and again, those emotional attachments that you get. And this game is like, as Ryan said earlier, you have moments of humor, you have moments of emotion, you have moments of sadness, you have there is a lot here to kind of like go through. So it's not just a comedy. It's not just a drama. It's not just an interactive story. It's not just an adventure. There's so much here. So I think, having somebody like Skew to really give you that emotional attachment is so important. It's one of the best parts of the game that I love. And again, the story is, to me, is the game, guys. You guys did such a good job here.
Thank you. I mean, I'm extremely proud of the gameplay as well, and that's something that Ryan and the team have done such an incredible job with, because we didn't want it to be merely a sort of walking simulator, or in this case, mobility scooter,
right?
Fulfillment center, fly through, pick up box simulator. We wanted to be physically engaged in it, and of course the rear mirror that that Kurt has, the fact that you have this in your body but also outer body experience with it. It feels like, to me, I wanted to capture this idea that when you read a really good book and it's told from a third person perspective, but still you relate to the character's every action. And that is something that I hadn't quite felt in VR yet. You either this sort of silent protagonist, right? Or you're just shooting stuff anyway and not thinking about what the hell you are. It doesn't matter. But I wanted to have that sort of literary that feel that we get from a good book, which we don't read anymore very much. To actually like be both inside of the character and also be able to judge them, to also like look at their actions and judge them from aside as well. And so Ryan has, worked so hard and so beautifully, and I think integrating all of these interactive elements as well, which then give you both the physical engagement, but also allow you to take in the story while you're doing it. It's been a tough balance for sure.
Yeah, I mean, there are cinematic experiences, excuse me, in VR, but as you probably know, they're very short, and they're that way on purpose because if you just sit through them, they can be, especially in a VR headset now, it can be a little daunting. So I think gamifying this experience and giving you something to do is extremely important here. And as I said before, I think none of these parts of the game work together without the other. I think it's such a great mix. It's done so well, and these things can go so wrong. We've seen them go wrong. So the fact that you did everything, to me, I think is perfectly is such a testament to both your studios, that it's just amazing that what you've done here with this. So I absolutely love this game. I really do.
Thanks, man. This quote is going to go on the other
right
side
below.
of the box. So.
Yeah, Ryan, let me ask you quickly. Launching on 3 platforms simultaneously, extremely hard to do, especially with a fairly new platform in PlayStation VR 2, and then launching flat as well.
Yeah,
how was that for you guys?
Isn't it more like 9?
Yeah, I think it's about 9.
Wow,
builds.
can you really list out? Let's talk. Like, list out these 9 platforms. I need to hear.
Yeah, so we've got PlayStation 5, PlayStation VR 2, headset on or off, PC flat, then PC, the various VR platforms. So we obviously support Index and Oculus, like mainly Quest. That's the then Oculus Quest 2 standalone. What else? We've got Epic and GOG in there as well. Switch.
Wow. Oh, it's on the Switch too. I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
So we use the motion control for kind of aim modifier as well. So we kind of sit somewhere in between on that one, which I think the Switch version, it's a really nice way to play the flat version, especially on the OLED, which we'd not seen until launch day, when one of the team brought theirs in from home and we fired it up. It's like, wow.
And don't forget, there's also, there's a Switch. There's a Playdate spin-off as well, where you can play Skew on Playdate.
Oh, no way, really?
There is, yeah.
That's, oh my God.
But yeah, making all these platforms has been really crazy, like making for all of them. Like originally it was like Ryan and I, when we were pitching it to publishers, we said we want to bring it to Switch to VR and Switch. That was it, like at the beginning, really. And then Wired Productions, our publisher, said like, yeah, but you might as well just make it for everything else. And it's like,
Xbox, yeah.
Oh, that one.
I forgot about it. Yeah,
Xbox. Oh my God, yeah. Right.
Yeah, Xbox. Yeah. X and S.
Wow.
Yeah.
Man, you guys did this all simultaneously, right? Everything launched at the same time?
Yeah.
That's
And I'm still getting over it.
And that you guys had no major bugs or no major problems on launches.
Not a single one.
And in the day and age that we have, where we have major titles launching with issues all the time, it seems, especially in virtual reality, it's amazing that you guys did this and literally had a really, I don't remember any major bugs that were announced on launch. It was like perfect.
all of the announcements of major bugs have been thwarted.
Perfect.
And Wire Productions has been sending its group of assassins out.
They're so good. They're so good. Hold on, somebody's at the door. I got to go get it now.
Yeah, I mean, there's always some teething, but yeah, I feel like we've been on top of it. And then yeah, we're still working on like little bits and pieces, kind of minor tweaks, quality of life things that are being raised, and you've got to pay attention to that stuff and yeah, do what you can to maybe where you do get some naysayers, try and counter that.
Yep, exactly. And
Yeah,
you were mentioning
that's where the assassins come in.
Yeah, you have the perfect team for that. You had mentioned the OLED screen on the Switch, and one of my favorite ways playing this game. I actually live streamed it last Saturday for a little bit on my PlayStation VR 2, and it looks the colors, the way the artwork is, and the graphic style of this game lends itself that cell shaded looks so good in that PlayStation VR 2 headset, and man, you have no issues with anything that people, any detractors people have been saying about the PlayStation VR 2. You don't see any of that with this game at all. I mean, it's like perfectly done inside this headset, and the haptics are great too.
I think what Ryan has done is brilliant because he has not only captured what Mick and I originally set out to do, for everything to be super punchy in the colors and super chunky in its feel, like your hands, everything is. I wanted to be chunky because I want to grab this world. I want to sort of like really feel it physically and also be inside of it, larger than life, and therefore I wanted to be chunky. But then, and Ryan will elaborate on this, but like the idea of actually doing this has been hard and required tons and tons of R&D in a really organic, beautiful way, because it just feels gorgeous. It's like it just the colors fly, the shapes are clear, everything is just and I love it.
I think we got like pretty early on, we got the kind of shading style down that we're going to use, and then the real meat of it is literally drawing the lines around everything. So there is, we're not trying to procedurally generate anything. There is hand drawn. So yeah, Rory and previously Anth, who are artists or were artists on the team, they have just grafted hard to make everything pop. And obviously we're working with different color palettes for different scenes, and we're wanting to take people through a bit of a visual journey as you work through, because making the game in a fulfillment center in a warehouse essentially could be very gray and could be very drab and very repetitive and very boring. But we go through that that rusty ground zero, or we go through the furnace where everything's hot orange, and that kind of mixture between that hint to the next level of the kind of cooling room. And so we want to kind of take things to that extreme with the palettes and the kind of tone of things, just so, because that's one of the kind of exciting things of when you see a game that's well, what I used to like about games like Zombies Ate My Neighbors, or something from that era. Just it were always their take on these different situations, or like Streets Rage take on the kind of bar interior. They're always something that's just quite exciting about that kind of artistic take on a scene or an environment. And I think that's this style just really lends itself to that. It's like, how would we do this? Well, we had to do it, so how will we do this?
Yeah, and also everything that we did in this had to have meaning to us. So it's like everything, we approached everything from a specific angle, and we said, like, what is this saying? Like, what is this saying about what we set out to do? How does this fit within the sort of rules for the world that we set out? And so everything is commenting on everything in a way. I mean, it may not be clear to everyone, and it's also not meant to be clear to everyone necessarily, but I know that everything that we've put in there and everyone that's worked on this game, including and especially also the programmers, have been storytellers. Like there's because to me, and Ryan thinks the same way. To me, code is not tech; it's a language. And so, and I think you can feel that in the mechanics as well. You can feel, and it must feel unusual to people who sort of expect, you're holding a gun, therefore it has to behave like a super slick first person shooter.
Mhm.
But that's not and Ryan is a massive Call of Duty like player and stuff. He
Oh,
knows.
really?
He knows how
Nice.
to do a proper first person shooter and what the mechanics are. But that's not what we wanted to do, because this is not what Kurt's. It's not a weapon. It's
Right.
a clunky tool that's not designed for combat. And so I'm sure that there will be some people who go like, but hang on a second, the shooting is a bit weird. It's like, yeah, I know,
It's
right?
supposed to be. Yeah, right. Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah, I was going to say, I think, if it was perfect, it would be like, how come Kurt has a gun? I mean, why is this, this isn't Gordon Freeman's gravity gun from Half-Life, or Half-Life 2. I mean, this is a machine that he uses to grab boxes and put him on his skid. So, I mean, it perfect to me, it works well with the story. Like it's there, like you understand it. But I could see where maybe some people are like, why is this like this? But yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, I think that problem shows itself probably more with like PC gamers, PC gamers.
Mm.
I'm not calling PC gamers flat, by the way.
I am.
Yeah,
I'm just kidding. No,
but
I'm just kidding.
but those two-dimensional beings that
How dare they? How dare they not be in virtual reality? That's all I have to say.
no, but I mean, with the screen, that's interesting because like that's where the tech comes in, like the OLED screen, as you mentioned, that alone already makes the graphics like meaningful, because it brings out the colors and the palette that we've created for this in a perfect way. Like, so that's why playing it on Switch actually makes it far more immersive than on any old PC screen, for sure. Like it's among the flat versions, playing it on that or on a Steam Deck is ideal, because you feel sucked into it. But people who play on a PC have different expectations. But it's like, it's like in the theater, you can design a play to be performed in the round, and then you put it on a proscenium arch, and it will still be great, and the actors will still perform beautifully. But there's certain moments that performing it in that proscenium, in that sort of in the round, that is going to give emotions and moments and angles to the audience that a proscenium arch stage will never give. And I think that's the difference to playing our game in VR to playing it in flat. It's just better. It's just the ultimate version.
Yeah.
For the flat version, we did go back to that kind of first-person shooter controller. We did initially try like the tank controls. You control the pod with one hand, you control the gun with the other. But we because we do, obviously, a lot of the team do play keyboard and mouse PC games, and a huge amount, to be honest, an obscene amount. But yeah, so when we were looking at the different routes we could go with the kind of flat controller, we did go back to that kind of instant turn. You move your head, the pod comes with you. The whole thing needs to feel. We've got an expectation now of how a first person game plays, even though you on a flying pod in a giant warehouse, it's very different, but it still needs that kind of almost Twitch reaction. You expect things to kind of feel and play in a certain way. So that's something we've definitely been working with and towards with the flat version, which then obviously translates to all the different platforms. But yeah, it was quite a process going through what would work and what wouldn't, and then essentially kind of splitting a little bit for the flat player versus the VR player, because the VR is slightly more simulation.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny that you mentioned this with the VR and flat, because to me, there's a lot of game. To me, not every game makes sense in VR, right? Not every flat game should be in VR, and not every VR game would work flat. this, because I think of the way the story is and the way the visuals are and the way the gameplay is, I think it does work really well flat. I mean, and in VR, but you know, I'll be a little biased and just say I think I like it a little bit better in VR. But I think it does work both ways. And there's been many times I'm like, well, why did we make this game a VR game? This, you know, what I mean, if I'm just button pressing everything like I would on a keyboard or on a gamepad, why am I in VR if I can just if all I'm doing is turning my head? Here's this not that's not that. There's so much immersion in the virtual reality part of this game that I think it deserves to have a VR part of this game. Like I think it would have been a disservice if you guys only made this game flat. So thank you for making it in VR.
That, yeah, to me that was always the flagship and the ultimate goal. And yeah, I think VR is the ultimate art form. I think it's the one that combines everything that I love into one, and therefore it is the ultimate art form. But
Definitely.
yeah, it's just, yeah, it's theater, it's film, it's game, it's architecture, it's experience, it's literary, it's musical, it's fucking stunning. It's just the best thing in the world.
Heck yeah. I couldn't I'm gonna put that on my page. Let me get that quote. It's fucking the best thing in the world. That's perfect. Guys, thank you for being here today, and thank you for spending so much time. I really appreciate it. Let me just ask, can we anything anything coming from Oiffy we can look for or
Well, actually, there's just this other little company that I've set up called Rapid Eye Movers, and if you look like behind me there, you can see this arcade cabinet.
Yeah.
It's an old Sega arcade cabinet. It's a game called Cosmic Smash, which was a Dreamcast game back in 2001. And so we have a game on with a company called Wolf and Wood. They're really quite good.
Are they?
Called C Smash VRS. And have you played the demo?
I have not yet. I have heard about it. I've reported on it, you know, on the channel and everything, but I have not had a chance to jump in.
Oh my god, my man!
Let's do it. I'm gonna now. I have to do it.
Yeah, no, like, yeah. So I was actually just in Newcastle 2 days ago with Ryan and his amazing team, because we're going to be releasing the game in June. So C Smash VRS is coming out in June on PlayStation VR 2 only for now, and it's complete opposite of The Last Worker in many ways. It's a purely physical game. It's a futuristic sports title set in space. It's all about super reduced graphic design and incredible dynamic music and full body VR experience.
Nice.
Running at 90 frames a second, single player or online, versus against another player, which that's why it's called C Smash VRS, because it's VR and versus. And I love it. And it's just pure fun. It's pure fun. If you check out people playing it on like YouTube and TikTok and other places, right, people are dancing inside of it and stuff. It's absolute pure blast. And there's a new mode that as an exclusive, I'll tell you, actually, because we haven't talked about.
Hell yeah, let's do it.
Game that 2 days ago that the guys let me experience. It's been on the pitch document since like 2 years ago that we wanted to do something called Body Smash in it, but where they've taken it is so fucking awesome. It's like you have, because in this game you're essentially playing squash in space, and it's also brick breaker as well. So there's a single player journey mode which takes you to the edge of space and time, and all sorts of cool shit. But you'll see, because we haven't shown any of it yet. But there's this Body Smash sort of versus mode where basically if the ball hits your body, then you're out, or you lose a point. But there's two balls going at the same time in a narrow space facing each other, and it goes so frantic, it goes so insane. We were giggling like complete idiots while playing it, while also sweating our asses off. It was incredible. So I just can't wait for people to play it. Like, it's
nice.
Yeah.
All right, I want to play that version too. Send it to me.
Well, that will be. Well, you'll have to wait for the full game to play Body Smash mode. But, but the demo itself is available. It's like we've got hundreds of new players, if not 1,000 new players, joining every day and checking it out. It's exciting. It's cool. People love it, and I love it too. Yeah.
Well, guys, in the video or in the live stream chat and the description, we'll have. I'll make sure we put the link in there or C Smash, so everybody can go check the demo out. And we'll, of course, we'll have the links in there for all the platforms, all 9 platforms, all platforms for the Last Worker. And man, this is just such a ball having you guys here, and I would love to do it again. I mean, you guys have so much to talk about. I would love to have you guys back at some point, because this was a ball. We literally could have done this for another 2 hours.
I agree. We're here. You know, we've got more stuff coming out. The Last Worker, as well as, thank you for spreading the word. You know, as new gamers join and people live to tell the tale and have lived through the tale. You know, can't wait to talk to them more about it as well. So yeah, yeah, just have us back on, and we look forward to it.
We'll do it. We'll do it. All right, guys, back to future Eric and Todd. I hope Todd's not sleeping, because he was absent during this interview.
Well, you're the Last Worker now.
Yep, I am the Last Worker.
Cheesy.